The retrospective of Eleanor Fairchild's work drew the city's elite, a room of perfume, ambition, and old money.
You can dress like one of us, Alex. You can memorize every brushstroke, but you'll never have class.
The words hung in the air, sharp enough to turn a few heads.
He had always known the gap was there. She had finally said it aloud.
Alexander's expression didn't change. He simply set his wineglass down on a passing tray and straightened his blazer.
Alex? You are not going to say something? Alex?
Number, not another word.
He turned and walked toward the gallery doors, his stride unhurried, the crowd parting without understanding what they were seeing. Outside, the rain had started. The city lights blurred on wet pavement as he disappeared into the night. Inside, Catherine stood frozen, the champagne glass trembling in her hand. The first thread of a story she could never escape had been woven. 2 years earlier, they met at a museum, a painter's daughter, and a factory worker who knew every brushstroke by heart.
You pronounce the names well, but you'll never sound like one of us.
Lapis lazuli was more expensive than gold in Venice. That's why this blue hasn't faded in 5 centuries.
At the Fairchild table, seating charts showed who belonged. Alexander sat by the kitchen door.
We don't discuss manual labor at the table, Alexander. It spoils the wine. Catherine, men like him are charming until the credit card declines. Don't confuse passion with security.
You are so enthusiastic. It's exhausting watching you try to prove you belong.
Let them underestimate me. I'll know more about art than any of them one day.
Alone in the gallery, Catherine watched the door. He had always come back before.
He won't stay gone. He has nowhere else.
Catherine pulled out her phone and called him 3 times. Each ring fed the silence.
Pick up? Alex, this is ridiculous.
She typed, "Fine. Run away. You'll be back when no gallery lets you in." Then deleted it, then sent it anyway. Across the city, Alexander walked into a pawn shop and slid his father's watch onto the counter.
How much for a bus ticket?
The money barely filled one pocket. But it was enough to leave everything he knew. The overnight bus pulled into a city where no one knew his name. He found a room with peeling wallpaper and laid his wet coat over a chair.
Let them keep their class. I'll earn mine.
In the empty gallery, Catherine pressed redial. The call went straight to voicemail. Her hand trembled. 6 years crawled past. The art world forgot a name, but Alexander remembered. Eleanor Fairchild passed in her studio, paint still wet on the canvas.
Your mother's estate is insolvent. The only assets of value are the paintings.
Sell them? They're not just assets. They're her life.
The creditors don't care about legacy. If the paintings aren't sold, the estate goes bankrupt.
While Catherine faced ruin, a man 3 cities away was building an empire.
Every hour spent learning the market is an hour closer to owning it.
He invested his first real profit into a failing frame shop, then a gallery, until Reed Fine Art became a name. By the time the Fairchild estate contacted him, Alexander owned the most prestigious gallery in the city. A letter arrived. Reed Fine Art has made the highest bid for the collection. They require an in-person appraisal. After the letter, Catherine called every gallery in the city. One by one, the answers came back the same.
Eleanor Fairchild's late work is undervalued? Her early pieces set auction records.
But her mother's reputation had dimmed in the market. The offers were insulting or non-existent.
They're treating her like a forgotten regional painter, not the genius she was.
Only Reed Fine Art stayed interested. Their condition, a private appraisal before any final offer.
I'll come in. Name the time. Thursday, 10 a.m. We'll need the full collection catalog in advance.
Catherine agreed. She didn't know who would be waiting in that room.
If I lose these paintings, I lose the last piece of her. But what choice is there?
The appointment was locked, and across town, Alexander read the confirmation with a cold smile. Alexander set the confirmation aside and glanced at the gallery photograph on his desk. It showed the exact spot where Catherine had humiliated him 6 years earlier.
You can dress like one of us, but you'll never have class.
He pressed the intercom. Lena entered within seconds, the Fairchild file in her hand.
The acquisition proceeds under one condition, a permanent one that cannot be negotiated.
A condition tied to the sale? The estate might resist.
They won't refuse. It's the only offer that keeps Eleanor's work out of storage.
He slid a handwritten draft across the desk. A single line, soon to be engraved on brass.
6 years. Every brick of this gallery was laid for this moment.
I'll instruct legal to embed it. She'll be presented with no alternatives.
The words would outlast any apology Catherine might ever offer. Catherine arrived at Reed Fine Art at 9:45, the marble facade cold and imposing under the harsh morning sun.
This place feels like a temple, not a gallery.
She adjusted her silk blouse, feeling the weight of her mother's legacy in the catalog she clutched.
Miss Fairchild, welcome. The appraisal room is prepared. Please follow me.
Lena's heels clicked on polished concrete, leading Catherine past walls hung with pieces worth more than her family's debt.
This gallery is buying my mother's work? It seems too pristine, almost too good.
They passed staff carefully hanging a Fairchild piece. Catherine froze for a moment, then forced herself onward. They entered a conference room. A single painting stood on an easel, a sample from the collection, already under the gallery's light.
Mr. Reed will join you shortly. He wanted to conduct this appraisal himself.
Before Catherine could reply, the heavy door swung open. The man who stepped into the room wore a charcoal velvet blazer and a composure Catherine had never seen on him before.
That walk, that jawline. It can't be.
Miss Fairchild, thank you for entrusting your mother's legacy to Reed Fine Art.
Alexander, you own this gallery.
I do, and I remember every word spoken in these spaces. Don't you?
The door closing that night, the champagne glass trembling. I told him he had no class. 6 years, you. How did you possibly?
How I built my life is a separate matter. This meeting is about the paintings. Please, sit.
Catherine sank into the chair, the portfolio slipping from her lap. She had never felt smaller. The man she had thrown away now held every card, and he hadn't shown his hand yet. Alexander opened a leather folder and slid a thin contract across the polished table. A single clause stood out in stark, unmissable type. Each painting shall bear a plaque reading, "The artist's daughter, who taught me about class."
He's branding me. For everyone who will ever walk these halls, this isn't a purchase. It's a monument to a grudge. You can't be serious.
I am entirely serious. Every visitor will know what was said, and by whom.
You'll never have class. Destroying me won't undo the past, Alexander. This is beneath you.
Nothing is beneath me any longer. You made sure of that.
The stillness between them grew heavier than any painting in the building.
I can't accept this. But if I walk away, the debts swallow everything. He knows it. You want to hang my shame on the wall, like a price tag. This is petty cruelty.
If the condition is unacceptable, the offer is withdrawn immediately. No counter, no negotiation.
My mother spent 40 years building a legacy. Please don't turn her canvases into billboards for revenge.
Her legacy will be preserved, but so will your lesson. You said I'd never have class. Remember?
I remember every word, every syllable that chased him into the rain.
Then you understand the price. Sign, and your mother's work stays in the light. Refuse, and it vanishes into storage.
A tear fell onto the contract, blurring the engraver's text. Catherine's shoulders shook.
He's won. The debt, the gallery, the memory, everything leads back to this pen.
She reached for the fountain pen. Her fingers trembled over the brass nib, the weight of the moment crushing her. Across the table, Alexander watched without mercy, without satisfaction, only the patience of a man who had waited 6 years for this moment.
The spotlight, the champagne, the exact shade of gold on her mother's final canvas. You'll never have class.
That word, it's the only thing you left me with. Now it's yours.
In the silence that followed, Catherine saw the door closing that night as if she were standing behind herself watching.
He isn't bluffing. He'd rather let my mother's work rot than bend.
Alexander leaned back and slid the pen a fraction closer, a gesture that offered nothing.
Every visitor will read it. Students, critics, collectors. They'll whisper my name like a cautionary tale.
Sign or walk out. There is no third door.
My mother's voice, my debt, my class, all of it comes down to this pen.
Her fingers closed around the barrel. The nib hovered a hair's breadth above the paper. The nib scratched across the paper. Catherine Fairchild, in a trembling hand, she barely recognized as her own.
I just sold my mother's memory for a line of brass.
Alexander slid the signed contract back across the polished wood and sealed it inside his leather folder.
The plaques will be cast tonight. By tomorrow, every frame will bear its lessons.
There's nothing left to break. He's taken everything.
In the workshop, a technician etched the first brass plate, the words taking shape under his lamp. The finished plaque sat beside a canvas, the inscription glinting under the same gallery light that once caught Catherine's champagne glass. Lena filed the paperwork without ceremony. The estate's debts would be cleared by morning.
6 years. One signature. Now they'll never forget.
And Catherine sat alone, staring at where her mother's painting would hang with a plaque beneath it.
Alexander, did you ever love me? Or was I just a lesson you plan to collect?
The plaque is your answer. Read it as often as the public will.
She stood shakily and walked past him without another word. The gallery corridor stretched in silence. Only the click of her heels on marble. A technician fastened the first plaque to a wall, its engraving catching the light.
All plaques are completed and will be mounted by tomorrow morning, Mr. Reed.
Good. Notify the press that the collection opens in 3 weeks.
Catherine stepped into a gray afternoon, the gallery a silhouette behind her. She didn't look back.
6 years distilled into a piece of brass. It will never be removed.
Embossed invitations were dispatched to the city's elite. The Fairchild retrospective would be the opening of the season. In the weeks that followed, Catherine avoided every gallery opening and every dinner invitation.
They'll all know soon, and they'll all read it.
An arts column hinted that Reed Fine Art had attached an unusual personal condition to the Fairchild purchase.
It's already leaking. They're going to print my humiliation before I can hide.
She walked to her mother's grave in the rain, hoping for peace, but found only the sound of her own name falling with each drop.
I am sorry, Mama. Your legacy now carries my worst mistake.
A week before the opening, a column asked, "What private lesson does Reed Fine Art's new acquisition commemorate?"
I am already a ghost haunting my own story. There's no escaping the plaque.
The embossed invitation lay on her desk, untouched, a countdown to the moment her shame would become public. She would go, not because she wanted to, but because staying away would only confirm the whispers already spreading. The night of the opening, Reed Fine Art glowed like amber stone under the city lights. Catherine stepped from a black car, her cream silk blouse feeling like armor, her hands cold. Inside, the gallery hummed with champagne and perfume. Eleanor Fairchild's paintings lined the walls. Beneath each canvas, a small brass plaque caught the light, identical, gleaming, impossible to ignore.
There it is, etched in metal. My name woven into his victory.
A few guests glanced at her, their eyes flicking between her face and the plaque.
Keep walking. Don't let them see.
Under a single spotlight, one plaque sat alone on a stand. as if already an exhibit of her lesson. Across the room, Alexander watched from beside a pillar, a wine glass in his hand. Catherine felt his gaze, a weight heavier than any frame on the wall. The night had only just begun. A woman leaned toward her companion and read the plaque aloud, her voice slicing through the ambient music.
They're all connecting the name. Catherine Fairchild, daughter of Eleanor, the one who said no class.
Two older patrons exchanged a glance that held a decade of society gossip. A critic uncapped his fountain pen over a leather notebook, already sketching the scandal for tomorrow's column.
I am trapped in a museum of my own humiliation. Every smile hides a verdict.
A couple paused directly in front of her, their eyes dropping from her face to the plaque and back.
They're waiting for a reaction. I won't give them one. Not one tear.
Alexander watched from across the room, his wine glass held steady, his expression unreadable. The room's murmur became the language of her undoing, each word on the brass an echo of the one she spoke 6 years ago. Catherine tried to edge toward the exit, but well-wishers and strangers blocked her path, already treating her as part of the exhibition. The crowd seemed to part as Alexander walked toward her, his smile a courteous mask for the guests who tried to intercept him.
He's going to speak to me, in front of everyone. What more could he possibly take?
He stopped before her, close enough that she could smell the cedar of his blazer. Alexander lifted an untouched glass from a passing tray and raised it toward her.
To Eleanor Fairchild, and to the lessons her family taught this gallery.
He's toasting my ruin. The room is applauding my sentence.
He leaned close, his voice a low note only she could hear.
Every plaque on these walls will remain as long as this gallery stands. That's forever, Catherine.
Forever. The word hit her like a closing door.
He straightened, offered a minute nod, and turned to greet a collector, leaving her standing in a bubble of silence. Clutching her purse, Catherine slipped into a narrow side hallway, the gallery's amber light trailing her like a stain.
Just a breath. One breath without their eyes.
She pressed her back against the cool wall, the muffled party pulsing through the plaster. Through a glass partition, she could see the gallery, the guests laughing, the plaques still shining under the spotlights.
They're not looking at the paintings. They're reading about me.
A waiter passed with empties, not noticing the woman gasping in the corner.
That plaque will outlast every apology I've never said.
The word forever began to sink into the cracks of her composure.
I am the lesson now. The one my mother never painted.
Outside, the city kept on. Inside, Catherine Fairchild was being etched into art history, one brass plate at a time. By morning, the art section of every major paper carried a phrase that had never appeared before. The artist's daughter, who taught me about class. A critic's column called it a stark, permanent reminder of how art and class intertwine and how cruelty echoes. Online, a photograph of the plaque went viral before lunch. The comments were not kind to Catherine. One top comment read, "Imagine telling a man he has no class and he buys the gallery that sells your mother's paintings." Sir, tour groups began including Reed Fine Art on their itineraries. The plaque's a darker draw than any painting. Catherine's name became a quiet joke in academic panels, a case study in art and reputation. Eleanor Fairchild's work received a retrospective of respect it hadn't seen in a decade, but every review mentioned the daughter. The lesson outlived the teacher. Catherine was no longer a person, but a footnote beneath her mother's genius. At Reed Fine Art, Alexander watched the numbers climb. The collection was a triumph, but he felt no warmth. The world now knew Catherine Fairchild, not as her mother's daughter, but as the woman who learned class too late. A decade passed. Alexander walked through his gallery as a man who had won and paid nothing for it. In his office, a framed photograph of Eleanor Fairchild still sat beside a sample plaque. He rarely looked at it.
She taught me class. I taught her consequence. The lesson has been paid.
During quiet afternoons, he'd sometimes pause beneath the plaque, but no emotion rose, only the weight of a story completed. Buyers and critics praised his eye, his acquisitions, his impeccable reputation. None ever spoke of the plaque in his presence.
They know. They just don't say it. That's the power of class. Silence.
He had everything he fought for. A gallery empire, a name that commanded respect, and a permanent monument to his past.
And yet, this office feels larger when I am alone.
Outside, the plaque was a legend. Inside, it was simply a piece of brass, and Alexander never returned to read it again. The lesson had outlived the teacher, and the student had become the master of his own silence. Nearly 2 decades after the opening, Catherine still lived in the same city, a quiet woman with gray-streaked hair and few visitors.
They still remember the plaque more than the paintings. My name, etched in brass, is my only legacy.
One rainy evening, her path took her past Reed Fine Art. The facade still shone, unchanged by the years. She stopped on the wet pavement, staring through the glass at the amber-lit hall. The paintings were still there, and beneath them, the plaques.
I taught him about class, and he taught the world about me. Forever, he said. He wasn't wrong.
A couple exited the gallery, laughing, oblivious. Catherine stepped aside, letting them pass, smaller than she'd ever been. She turned away. The light inside held no room for her. She didn't try to enter.
That door closed the night I spoke. It never opened again.
At home, she placed her mother's photograph beside the window, the only witness to what she lost. The plaque remained, polished each week by hands that never knew the story. And Catherine walked on, a name in brass. Inside the gallery, decades of dust had never settled on the brass. The plaque remained under its own spotlight, unmissable. A young art student, notebook in hand, paused before the painting. She read the inscription once, then again. She didn't photograph it. She just stood there, absorbing a lesson older than she was. Then, a small shake of her head, not with judgment, but with the slow understanding of consequences. She tucked her notebook under her arm and walked on, the story already fading from her mind, but never from the wall. Visitors came and went. Decades passed. Trends shifted. Yet the plaque never moved. It had become more permanent than memory, more permanent than grief, more permanent than Clis itself. The artist's daughter, who taught me about class, a single sentence etched in brass, a lesson that outlived the teacher, the student, and the gallery that housed it. And as the gallery darkened for the night, the plaque still shone, waiting for the next pair of eyes to learn what Catherine Fairchild learned too late.